This presentation has been divided into a limited series to facilitate a review and discussion of the information offered in each of its segments. Part 1 includes an introduction that serves to refresh or reload the information provided in the preliminary defense. Next, it moves towards exploring how a relevant Delphi policy methodology was adapted to this study. I trust that you will find this presentation engaging and interesting, and that you will view the next video in this series. This video is approved for educational use as an advanced instructional tool by its author and copyright holder. This final defense presentation was produced for Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education and Psychology. The dissertation is offered as a China Study, Emerging Challenges in Social Security, Healthcare and Leadership. November 19, 2018. Printed copies of the slides used to support this presentation have been provided to the members of the committee. Questions will be addressed upon the conclusion of this presentation, or as provided by the committee chairperson. Part 1 of this presentation briefly summarizes a few of the key points explored in the preliminary defense specific to chapters 1 through 3. Then, it moves to explore new information pertaining to how this study shaped a relevant Delphi methodology to best fit the proposed research, investigation and initial findings in chapter 4. As such, this is the first part in a series of steps to gain insight into one of the world's most intriguing modern phenomena in the context of a newly emerging world power that will continue to rise and affect all of us as global citizens in a number of significant ways we go about our lives. Certain international senior-level business leaders, scholars, and researchers would be wise to learn what this study has discovered as it presents this series of presentations. In addition, it should be noted that the dissertation was divided into 2 volumes. Volume 1 addresses the main content, and Volume 2 demonstrates the empirical processes applied. Proof of work. The original data collected as evidence. The analytical techniques used. And other information needed to support this study's findings and conclusions. As such, the information contained in Volume 2 is referenced in this presentation. China is poised to introduce sweeping innovation and disruptive social change onto their national stage. As China's leadership, economic power, and authority increase, the country will be subject to a series of additional internal and external challenges. This study successfully identified several significant internal social and leadership challenges the country is most likely to confront along its path to global leadership. Specifically, the purpose of this study is to explore and discover the social challenges that are likely to face China, and to predict the direction the country's leadership will take over the next decade. This study approached the problem by undertaking a series of empirical processes or methods to investigate 6 environmental categories as influencers or drivers of change. This study's approach utilized Schmider and Millet's Spell-It matrix model to frame the study. Saldana and Davis's theming and coding techniques to identify themes, code, and map patterns in the data. Huff and Sharker's declining generational relevancy model to apply longitudinal coefficients that allowed better assessment of the data. Pearson's correlation analysis to identify the strengths of relationships in the data. Friedman and Yule's regression analysis, statistical modeling and theory of correlation to identify and forecast predictive factors and trends. Wasserman and Butt's social networking analysis to discover factor or data nodes and linkages. Turoff and Turoff's real-time policy Delphi method to identify influential factors, consensus, and stability. And Frank Shepard's Shepardizing method to identify and confirm the most recent research findings. Ultimately, these approaches were integrated into Mitroff's inquiry system, IS. A dialectical approach to policy and planning, in this case by applying Locke and Hegel's theories. Best applied to ill-structured or wicked problems, Mitroff and Emshoff, 1979, on strategic assumption making. The system involves a 4-stage methodology. These include the development of a series of assumption specifications, the use of a dialectic narrative, the integration of a series of assumptions, and the creation and implementation of a composite strategy. during the course of examining those factors that appear to be influencing China's social programs, this study additionally placed emphasis on investigating the country's cultural ideologies, leadership, and organizational behavior. This focus was specific to identifying these characteristics as they are linked to social, political, economic, legal, intercultural, and technology factors. It was discovered that many of these characteristics and factors are linked and observed as converging to influence or drive China's social security, healthcare, and emerging leadership program priorities. Restatement of the problem. China is beginning to experience social security and healthcare programs which represent a crisis and leadership challenge. As such, this study's initial investigation into China's social reform and leadership challenges indicate the country has a strong desire for continuing growth, is experiencing a transitioning ideology, and that it desires national superiority and global dominance. All were discovered to be influencing or driving factors that are significantly linked to the country's success in achieving its desired social and leadership program innovations in the next decade. Further, this study found these will impact the Chinese people and each of us in the global community. Shaping a relevant Delphi study framework, spell it model. This graphic depicts discoveries associated in each of the model's 6 categories. As can be observed, each of the factors discovered were coded according to category, theme, and longitudinal association or time reference. The central point of this graphic is to illustrate that each of these categories and themes were initially discovered to be associated with the challenges China's leaders will face in the future. Social security and health care were found to be linked to the social category and coded accordingly as 3S9 and 3S10. Internal leadership ideology, external leadership ideology, and leadership behavior are indicated in the political category, coded 3P5, 3P7, and 3P8. The political category themes were found to be directly linked to emerging leadership characteristics and advanced training programs. All 5 themes were ultimately integrated into the Delphi process as STEM inquiries or statements, as represented in Volume 1, Chapter 4. And, in Volume 2, these themes were tested for validity and relevance in each of the survey questionnaire rounds. Additionally, what was found in this study will significantly impact each and every one of us in the future as global citizens. As such, many of China's desires and successes are critical to all of us in the context of global stability. Subject to the committee's questions, this concludes this portion of the final defense presentation. Thank you for your valued time, consideration, and patience. I trust that you found this presentation engaging and interesting. Most importantly, I would like to believe it will assist other peers and the academic community in their design and approach to similar research efforts. I look forward to answering any of the committee's questions pertaining to this presentation. This work is focused on China's emergence as a global economic leader from a non-Western worldview. His studies analyze China's increasing competitiveness among its first-tier trading partners for control of sufficient natural resources to lead the global community. Considering numerous world resources have peaked. As such, Mr. Huff considers the increasing demands from emerging economies representative of areas worthy of increased academic study. Mr. Huff invites you to view his team's upcoming publications, and again, trusts you found this presentation of interest and value. Thank you. The Clayton Research Consultancy, a public service corporation. Leaders in education, research, global innovation, and change.